Trinity. I'm 33 years old. I'm a Staten Island native. I own a company called Trinity Place Designs, and this is my show, From Cells to Shells with Trinity. Formerly, for 5.5 years almost, I was a New York City correction officer, and I went through a lot. Needless to say, aside from that, I've been hairstyling for about 24 years. With that, I traveled all over the place. I work with Fashion Week. I've worked on video shoots. I've done so much, and we have a chance now to tell everyone our story. This is going to be about my family, my friends, being a momager to my son Seth, being a sister, a friend, hairstylist. My name is Leona's Becky Trinity. It was supposed to be Becky Girl, but my dad thought it was too many names, so we dropped the girl. My grandmother's name is Rebecca, so Becky. And then my other grandmother, her name was Girly, and it was supposed to be Girl. I know I'm a girl, and then I would have the name Girl, but that doesn't matter. I should have just had the name, but my dad thought it was too many. But aside from that, I was born on September 27, 1988, the greatest day ever. Wheezy, shout out to Wheezy, it's his birthday too. In Staten Island University Hospital. My mom just told me a story basically saying that when she was about to have me, she named me already after my Uncle Leon. God rest his soul. I never got to meet him, but me and my cousin Leona are named after him because he didn't have any children. And I heard that he was such an amazing person, so maybe he left his spirit with me, for me to be the person that I am today. So my mom said that she already had me named ahead of time. She knew she was gonna have a girl, wanted another girl of her own, because I do have 3 sisters, and we're a blended family, but being blended doesn't change anything. We love each other all the same. And with my uncle being gone before I was born, she was like, I'm gonna blend Leon and Agnes and create Leonas. So when she was in the hospital, my dad, he left. I don't know why he left, but she says that he claims he had to go back to work, and by the time he came back, I was already born, and he was like, well, how did that happen that fast? I just had to step up into the world. I didn't have time to wait around. So by the time that I was being born, my mom was saying that the doctors and the nurses were screaming, and she thought something was wrong, but basically I came out with a lot of hair, and that's what they were screaming about. She's like, well, why are you screaming about her having hair? I'm thinking something's wrong with her. So I came into the world causing havoc from birth. So I was born to 2 Liberian immigrants. My dad's name is Franklin Trinity, and my mom's name is Agnes Trinity, and we have a huge, wild, crazy, and funny as ever Liberian family. We love to gather, eat, hang out, crack jokes on each other, but it's always all love. So having a show like this is just going to show you our culture, how we live in America, and just different things about who we are. Being from Africa, of course, there's so many different debates about all the different countries, their cultures, but collectively, we are all amazing, and we're just going to show you a piece into our life. So I will insert parts with my family talking about me. I'm sure they'll have so much to say. But when I was younger, I was the baby. So I was treated well. That's all I can say. So all the babies in the world, shout outs to you. Because there's nothing that we could do. They had us last. They want to treat us the best. I'm sorry for any shortcomings that may have happened to you, but I lived a great life, and I still do. Shouts out to God. Thank you. Yes, a shout out to all my people that I met at 911. Whew, 911 was fun. But there were a lot of crazy calls that we received. Sometimes there would be people saying that they killed somebody, and we would have to transfer them to the police and also get EMS involved. I've received calls from out the country where they're looking for family members that live in New York, and they're trying to do a wellness check on them, which is sending the police or ambulance or both to a resident location where the person lives and they haven't been heard from for some time. So sometimes when you hear those stories, like, oh, there was a wellness check at this location, those are some of the things that we used to do. So 911 was a great experience. And from there, that's when I ended up at corrections. So one of my friends that I've been friends with for a very long time, since maybe junior high school, she wanted to transfer, and we ended up doing our whole process together. And corrections brings us here to From Cells to Shells with Trinity. So growing up on Staten Island, we always have to go through this, don't we? Y'all just be mad that y'all don't have a boat. No, but on a serious note, I love being from Staten Island. I know a lot of people are like, oh, there's nothing to do, this and this and that. But if you want to take a trip somewhere else, just go take a trip. I like to have quiet nights. There's not a lot going on. I like that. But the people who don't, that's their business. They can move wherever they want to move. But personally, me growing up on Staten Island, I didn't have a problem with it. This is all I knew, so I don't stray away from it. You know, there's a lot of talented people on the island. We have a lot of hairstylists, a lot of, like I said previously, a lot of construction workers, a lot of people that work for this city. And, you know, we just live here. This is where we're from. I don't really have an issue with it. But considering other boroughs, they feel as if, you know, who's from Staten Island? But when you watch this series, you will see how many people are talented, have businesses, and do so many different things, and they're from Staten Island. Yes, shouts out to Wu-Tang. We know that they put us on the map, but there's so much more new talent that's out here, and there's a lot more collaborations with the old Staten Island and new Staten Island. So being a female officer in any field or department or county is not easy overall. But being in an enclosed environment like jail and being a female in a male facility is very hard to explain. Sort of like when you're walking past a group of guys down the street and everybody's kind of like catcalling and like, yo, man, da 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 da, trying to talk to you. It's the same thing, times 48, times 50, sometimes even 60 men and just you. So that's the visual of a female officer working in a facility without a partner. Throughout my career, I could say I didn't get in trouble a lot, and I prided myself on that. I didn't want a bad record because I always knew that being in facilities in the jail itself wasn't going to be where I ended my career. So I made sure that I always had a good record. Any transfer requests that came out, I always submitted for them so that I could move to another facility or headquarters or whatever. So there was a time where I was able to get out of the facility, and I'll talk about that more when I discuss my family and how they were affected with me working on Rikers. I was able to get out, and after that, there was a lot of back and forth. I was kind of like, how do I put it? Kind of like they just like did away with me. After I left and it seemed like somebody hooked me up to get out, not my hard work, not my good record, when I got back to the facility, they were giving me hell. Like they didn't want me to work in my old areas. You know, they kind of put me on a world tour, took me to all the worst houses with the most worst inmates in the world in that building, let's say. And from then, it just started to get difficult. I was getting into fights every day, on the floor, on the bus, in other facilities. They're pulling at us. I'm in the hospital. There's just so many things going on at once. And I ended up going out on an injury. Going out on an injury, as well as during that same time, my sister unfortunately passed away. So I ended up putting in FMLA so that I could spend time with my family while we were grieving. I'm the type of person that no matter what, I'm not gonna let anything push me down. Even though internally I might feel like, damn, this is like crazy, like what I'm going through, I might cry about it, but I'm gonna get back up. So during this time where my sister passed away, I took 2 weeks off, but I went straight back, but it just didn't feel right. Everything just didn't feel right. I rushed out and I rushed right back. Like there's something in you as an officer, like I'm not letting them run me out, and you can continue working, continue pushing to the limit, and really you should stop and think about how you're being affected, how your family's being affected when you are working. So during this time, I ended up being out from FMLA. I'm supposed to return, but there's a lot of back and forth in the office, and around, I believe it was September 2021, the flood Hurricane Ida, the Hurricane Ida ended up washing out my apartment, like water everywhere. My son lost his bed. We lost pretty much everything. Mold started to grow in the apartment. I've been living in this place going on 6 years, so I never lived anywhere else, and I for sure didn't want to go back home. It's something psychological. Like I moved out, I made it out on my own. I don't want to go back live with my mom and have to hear her on the phone with the church ladies and this and that. Like, you know, it sounds funny, but it's like you really just don't want to do it. I'm raising my son on my own, and I had to basically take a bunch of steps back to move forward. So during this time, when I got washed out, I called the delegate, you know, that's the person that helps represent the officers when there's an issue, contacted them and let them know, hey, I was flooded out yesterday, my home is not livable, I had to change my address. I called the sick line, I called all these different areas, and they ended up coming to visit, and they put a notice on my door basically saying, oh, you weren't home, and it's called the AWOL. So now they end up putting down my wall. I'm calling them, trying to fix everything. They're giving me the runaround, giving me, you know, so many issues about this, and I wasn't able to fight it at that time. So months go by, I'm still trying to fight it. I'm like, listen, I told you guys that I had to change my location. They come again, give me another notice. So now I have to go sit with the warden. So I end up calling the delegates. I'm like, listen, I've never been in trouble. You know, it is not that I'm scared to get in trouble, but it's like, why get in trouble if there's no need for it? I'm not the type like, oh, I don't care if they put something on my record, I'm still do me. No, I don't want a bad record just to say that I don't care. I do care. And the reason that I was able to be so successful for those years was because I followed the rules and did what I was supposed to do within reason. So when all that happened, I ended up having to move back home, but it actually in turn made me closer to my family. I was able to be with them, they were able to see my son all the time, so it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, and then I ended up being able to purchase a home. And as you know, when you're purchasing a home or anything traumatic in your life happens, it doesn't have to be negatively traumatic, but something that is just a life changer. Whether you're having a baby, whether you're getting married, whether you're purchasing a home, any type of change in life, people say you change, and yes, you do have to change. If you want certain advancements in your life, you're gonna change. But sometimes people put a negative connotation on it, and it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. But things in your life are changing in a certain direction, and people are changing in their direction. So at the end, I ended up overcoming everything, but I realized that the department had turned their back on me just because of something that happened to me that was tragic. I'm sitting in the middle of my room, living room, with all these boxes around me, water all around me. I had different garbage bags everywhere. I had to throw out so many things. It wasn't even salvageable to give to someone else. Everything was just soaking wet, so I had to get rid of everything. American Red Cross, FEMA, there were so many different agencies that I went through for help, and they didn't help. I know that a lot of people suffered a lot, but I just realized at that moment that you cannot depend on anyone but yourself. Whether you're working for a company, an agency, whether you are reaching out to the government for assistance, you have to figure out a way to make sure that you're always going to be good, have that rainy day account, whatever it may be, because I was left out to dry. Literally, like I had nothing. My stuff was in bins for months and months and months while I was trying to figure out where I was going to live, how am I going to get out of this situation. And as time went on, it just became more and more difficult. Essence by Trinity Place Designs. We have a hair mask, peppermint shampoo and conditioner. We also have coconut shampoo and conditioner. Check out our line at www.trinityplacedesigns.com. So now I'm going to tell you about this story of when I was working in GRVC in, I believe, 7 buildings. So 7 building was a predominantly Hispanic house where all of the individuals in that house were Spanish. Maybe a few African Americans, but most of them were Spanish of some sort. Different countries, but they all kind of unified. They all worked together. They were very clean. Not to say that other houses weren't, but some houses were just not in great condition, but they were in a house that wasn't that bad overall, and they just naturally cleaned without any officers giving them any direction. So this particular day, I was fairly new to the house. I knew a few of the inmates in there, but not all of them. So there was one guy, I didn't know him, but he was trying to, like, I guess, take my temperature, feel me out, see who I was. And he just started talking, and I'm talking back, but not too much, not revealing anything personal about myself, but I'm, getting information from him. He's just talking. So he's basically saying, as an officer, you're a female, be careful. These inmates are always going to try to pull a trick on you. They're always going to try to get, their way. So you got to be careful. Make sure you don't let anybody give you any drugs or anything, which I thought was kind of weird. I'm like, why would you be talking about drugs? But whatever, regular inmate stuff. So I'm just listening to him, not really paying him no mind. I'm making my tours. I'm going around talking to a lot of the different inmates and everything. And, it was a cool day, which is what you pray for when you're in jail. You just want an easy day. You do what needs to be done, and you go home the same way that you came. So now this guy's still staying by my desk. Like, when you come into a housing area, we'll try to insert a clip. When you come into the housing area, you'll be at a desk. Some either are bolted down depending on the facility, or it will just be like a circle table with 2 chairs for you and your partner. So in this facility, the table, or the booth is kind of bolted to the ground. So he's talking, and I'm just like being cool, not too cool, but I'm just listening. He's just going on and on about how he needs to give food to his cousin that's in another house. Now, the way the jails are set up, there's some houses that are like at least a mile walking distance away, because it might be up the stairs, it might be up 3 floors in the elevator. It all depends. So he's still talking, but he's about to go to work. So there's some individuals that are able to work because their record or so is not so bad. They're allowed to float around the building. So if you're an inmate, that's actually like an amazing thing. You're good enough by black and white standards, regulations, that you can be hired to move around the building, which means you're going to other houses, other facilities, sometimes to clean or whatever your job task is. So he was on his way to work. He had a package. He kept talking about this package. He needs to get this package. And I'm like, I'm not taking no package nowhere. When I took a personal, which was me going out off the floor, you sign out. You call the control room, let them know, hey, I need to take a break. I need to use the bathroom. I'm going on a personal. You'll sign off to say that you're stepping off, and whoever's in the bubble, which is like the office in between your area, that officer will visually watch the floor. So I stepped off for a second, refreshed, who knows if I was on a double or not, came back to the floor, and he left the bag there and went to work. So now when I get there, I'm looking at the bag. I'm like, why would he leave this bag on my desk? But there was no intention to ever take the bag where he wanted it to go. So let's say he's in 7 building and he wanted this bag to go to 13, which is down the hall, make a left, make a right, go up like 4 flights of steps. Not happening. Either way, it didn't matter if it was nearby. I still wasn't bringing, because you have to check everything, make sure there's nothing in there. And as much as you check what they have, they're so clever and so unique with the way they hide things, you might not ever know what's really in there. So I ended up bringing the bag in, and thankfully, I had a partner who spoke Spanish. So I give him the bag. I'm like, why would he leave this on my desk? We're just kind of like talking about it. So he's like, let's look through it and call the captain. So we looked through it, called the captain. There was a note in there, but the note was in Spanish. Basically, he's reading the note. He's like, well, there's drugs in here. And he's saying that it's the K2, which was one of the most popular drugs on the island. K2 is inside the jelly. So normally when they get breakfast, the jelly is kind of like on their tray. So it's limited what they can have. Ramen noodles, it's not like upstate where they can send you all different types of food. You can only get what's on the commissary list, and maybe you can get something that you save from lunch that the jail provides you. So when they get breakfast, they save the jelly in like a peanut butter jar. So after they finish their peanut butter, they put jelly in it and save it, which they're not supposed to. But when you don't have much, you have to make do with what you have. So they end up digging in there. There's a ball that is an aluminum foil size, like probably like this, filled with K2. We call the captain, let the captain know. Captain did everything that they needed to do on their end. that was just a crazy situation. If I was not particular and making sure that I didn't just do whatever the inmates told me, I would have been walking with all those drugs to another housing area, probably get those officers in trouble. And what if, God forbid, the inmate dies from an overdose? It's like, oh, well, let's check the cameras. Let's see, how did he get this bag? How did he get these drugs? Oh, Officer Trinity was over there. So that was a learning lesson. Like, even when the individuals are quote unquote nice, they have manners, they don't disrespect you, they'll try that way to get over. So if I wasn't paying attention, I'm like, okay, it's just food. What harm is in that? And I'm transferring drugs. So just that fast, those are the kind of things that happen in jail. So the situation that I'm about to tell you about now is funny now, but trust me, when it was happening, it was not funny at all. So we're back in GRVC, and thankfully, I made it out safely. So I was in 8 building. 8 building at that time was kind of like a good house. Basically, they were able to play PlayStation. I think they had Xbox. I forgot what the actual name of the house was, but they had a particular name basically to say like they were the good inmates, and that house didn't cause any problems. They were able to play games and have a lot of services come to that area, which is like civilians coming in with different programs and stuff for them, because they behaved, and you get rewarded for good behavior. I mean, let me rephrase. Typically you do get rewarded for good behavior, but even bad behavior gets rewarded, and I'm sure we'll be able to go over that later on. So back to 8 building. Normally when a new inmate is coming to your house, you have to check the cell, check the water, check the toilet, check the bed frame, windows, ceiling, just to make sure that either the inmate before didn't leave anything, like their belongings, clothes, weapons, food, anything that a new inmate shouldn't walk into. So there was an inmate coming in. I don't know who the inmate was, but normally you'll pedigree and ask, where's this person from, what gang they're in, who they are, do they have any problems with anybody in this house, because it will basically protect you and the inmates that are in there and the inmate that's coming in. Because if they have beef and they're just telling you, hey, bring him in, there's nowhere else for him to go, and the whole house wants to kill them, that's a problem for you, which we call a bag. So this particular day, I go to the cell, and in 8 building, the slam lock on the doors is so heavy that I was using my foot to hold the crack of the door, and I'm flicking the lights, I'm turning on the faucet, I'm flushing the toilet, and the door slams on me. And I was stuck inside the cell. That was the craziest feeling ever. So I'm inside the cell, and now when I look up, there's an inmate by the window like, you stuck in there? And I'm like, yeah, I'm stuck in here. Like, I'm looking back, but thankfully, overall, just you being a good person will change how people treat you. Sometimes it might not work in your favor, but more than not, especially in jail, if they know for a fact that you always make sure that they eat, you always make sure that they get their services, their meal, or whatever the case may be, even going to the dentist is something that's very important to them, because it's not something that they can do on their own. They can't not walk to these areas on their own. So I'm trapped in the cell. I'm sweating like crazy because I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to die in here. Like, I can't believe it. I'm just hot. I'm trying to use the key from the inside. It was just crazy. So the inmate's like, you really locked in there. And he's like, no, but you a good officer, so I'm going to tell them to buzz you. So basically, there's a control panel that's inside the bubble where the officer controls how to open the doors electronically. But normally they don't want you to do that, because what happens is if you're not familiar with that area, you can allow another inmate to come in that housing area into somebody else's cell. They can steal their property, vandalize, just anything. So they really don't want you to buzz. But thankfully, the officer knew that the inmate wasn't that bad and buzzed the door for him, and I finally got out. When I got out, I swear, it's like somebody poured water on me. I was so nervous being in there. First of all, I'm like, they're gonna fire me. I'm trapped in the damn cell. The inmates are running around. I'm in here with the keys. Who knows what's going on out there? Like, it was just one of the craziest moments. Now I can laugh about it, but when it happened, I left it at that. And the good thing is the inmate didn't really say anything. Like, he didn't go around telling everybody, oh, I got her out of the cell. Like, he knew that it just was what it was. Like, he knew that I always made sure that house was good. Anytime I worked there, I did everything that I was supposed to do, and I wasn't grimy, thankfully, because who knows what the story would have been if a captain would have came and been like, what are you doing in there? And I'm like, I'm locked in here, and the inmates won't let me out. So that was a fond memory. It was funny, but I was sweating bullets, and I don't ever want to be trapped in a cell ever again. Stories that we have on my time on Rikers Island on From Cells to Shells with Trinity.